Hey there, my name is Katie, dietitian and personal trainer, and it is my personal goal to help you build your confidence and balance in your food and fitness journey. Today we are joined by Maya. She's gonna be sitting on my lap today. She has grown a lot. If you have seen any of my previous videos, she's a big girl now, but she loves to cuddle, so she's gonna join us today. I talk a lot about nutrition and wellness and fitness. Today though is gonna be a little bit different because I wanna talk about another type of wellness that doesn't get enough clout, and that's mental health and mental wellness. I kinda wanna relate it to things that have been happening in my life recently. As you may have noticed if you've followed my channel for a while now, I took about 3 months off in this transitional period, but I chose to really take a good look at my life and my mental well-being and ask myself what was worth it and what was best for my mental health, and I chose to just take that time off. But anywho, what I did want to share is that I recently moved from the Midwest, Illinois, to Colorado, and I've been here almost 3 months, and I am so happy. Illinois just was not making me happy, and I felt that way for a long time, but I was going through a lot of things, finishing college. I finished grad school in Illinois because I was given the opportunity to do an assistantship in one of the Illinois grad schools that I got into, and I chose to do what was best for me and stay in Illinois to complete grad school because essentially I had my grad school paid for. Who can argue with free grad school? It really wasn't something that I was for sure about, but once I got accepted into the grad assistantship, it really felt right, and I felt like it was the right thing for me to continue my education, because if any of you are dietitians out there, or if you know anything about dietitians, in 2024, dietitians who are new and going to be going through their internships and signing up for their exam, they're gonna have to have a master's degree before they can do that. Anyone before that is graduated into it, and so I don't necessarily have to have my master's degree technically, but it's something that I decided that I did want for myself, just to make myself competitive and to just expand my knowledge in the world of nutrition. This all kind of leads up to just what I want to share about my experience with moving to Colorado. I have to say that it was a really tough thing for me to do. I honestly don't think that there's been anything that's been more difficult in my life before. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I've gone through several things. I've gone through a lot of, ups and downs in my life. However, I will say that to actually go about moving across the country, that definitely was the hardest thing to accept within me, even though I wanted it really badly. And I just wanted to share my story a little bit because I know that it can help to know that other people have done it, and to hear other people's stories, and to know that it's not just like they're so special, they had the money to do it, they had the guts to do it, and they just had no fear, and they flew across or drove across the US and landed there and everything went perfectly, and good for them, good for them. That was not my position, and that was not how things went for me. I have always, since probably I entered college and undergrad, I've wanted to leave Illinois. It just felt like it wasn't the place for me. I didn't feel accepted, or like I was someone who fit in with the Midwest culture, at least that part of the Midwest. And when I say Illinois, I do not mean Chicago. I was in the more rural area of Illinois. So for those of you who were like, I love Chicago, no, it's not Chicago. I was about 3-4 hours from Chicago. So anywho, my experience with Illinois was just something, it just felt like a toxic relationship that kept getting worse, and it kept kind of eating at me because I didn't want to stay there, and I wanted to find a place where I felt accepted and where I felt like I was accepted exactly where I was at. So if you want to know an example of how I didn't feel quite accepted, essentially anything that I would bring up that was out of the norm culture, like even yoga, or bringing up something like the fact that I wanted to be an entrepreneur and own my own business and chat with people online, counsel people online, and educate through YouTube, that was really kind of weird. And sorry, my nose itches. That was really weird, and I always felt kind of rejected when I would bring up ideas like this. And maybe that's not necessarily anything to do with the state itself, but it really didn't feel good that the people around me and the culture around me and the vibrations around me were just not conductive of positivity. I didn't feel like I could grow there. I didn't feel like I could be accepted for what I wanted to do there. And I was kind of just told that I had to go in a clinical job, and that was what was out there, and that it's cute that I like wanted to do these videos and that I wanted to do like online stuff, but that just doesn't work and it just doesn't pay, and I couldn't really make it. And that really broke me to the core for a while. And it's not to say like no one supported me. I had a lot of great people in my life that did support me and did like build me up and tell me that I could do exactly what I wanted to do. And so I so appreciate that. I'm just saying the culture in general of where I was at, the location, it just didn't feel like I could live to my fullest potential in that location. The closest job that was gonna be near like where I went to school was like an hour away, and I just didn't feel like I could grow as a dietitian or grow as a person if I stayed where I was. Now, again, I could have probably found a different town that would have worked better for me, but personally it just felt right. To move and to start over and start fresh and be in a new location. And Colorado is a place that I've visited before, and so I knew that I loved it. I knew that the culture was open and very accepting and loved change and loved activity and loved health. So that's where I wanted to end up, and I knew this years ago, and thankfully my significant other had the same kind of dreams. So when we started dating when I was in undergrad, then we knew that Colorado was the place where we wanted to be. Now, not to say that I went to Colorado to be a entrepreneur. I just went to Colorado because that's where I wanted to be. Ultimately, I wanted to be in a place that I really truly loved being there and loved being outside and loved who I was around. All right, so I wrote down a few points so that this wouldn't just be about me blabbing about my journey itself. I wanted to throw some advice, I guess, if you want to call it, like, and tips on if this is something that you want to do, if you want to move away from where you are, or you want to start over, start fresh. I just wanted to give you some little bits of advice that I learned from my experience, because I feel like it definitely can translate to a lot of different experiences out there. Now, earlier I mentioned that I had a lot of people that really kind of didn't believe in me. It didn't believe that what I wanted was possible. I don't think I mentioned this yet, but when I mentioned things like Denver and Colorado, they said, oh, it's so expensive there. It's beautiful, but it's just way too expensive. And they would throw things out there like the cost of living and why I shouldn't do it. And they were trying to express it in a caring way, but it ended up being something that was very discouraging for me, and that didn't make me feel good inside. It made me doubt myself. It made me doubt my ability to move and if it was possible, and it really made me kind of manifest all this fear and anxiety and worry about everything that could possibly go wrong, when it really was a pretty smooth trip over. It costed a decent amount to move, but it was physically possible. I saved, I planned, I made sure I had enough to pay for, you know, the payment for our apartment, and also to have some safety net if anything were to happen. I planned it and I made it happen, and those words were not helpful to me. Listen to your gut. Of course, there are places out there that are extremely expensive, and it's no joke that you should plan for moving. And definitely, I am a planner, trust me. I plan day in and day out for most things. I don't need to be told or warned that I need to plan or that I need to be financially like ready, because I know and I will do it. I promise. I don't need another person doubting me for that to happen. But when you hear these words of wisdom, words of advice from people who aren't going through the same thing as you, just listen to your gut and what it tells you. Maybe you do need to listen to that person's like warning or their advice. Maybe it's like career advice on what does well in what area and who makes money and what state, because that does matter, and that has a role to play in it, but ultimately, I think you can do whatever you want to do in whatever location that you dream of. If you want to make it happen, you're going to put forth the effort to make that happen and to make it work. And so for someone to tell you that it's just too expensive to live in New York or San Francisco or Denver, Colorado, it's all a matter of perspective. And yes, there are some things, like some people make less money than others, but if you want to find a way to make it work, then you will make it work. There are teachers that live in New York City. There are lawyers that live in New York City. There are people of every job category and every salary type in just about every state out there. And how you want to live and how you want to make that happen just depends on what's worth it to you and what the pros and cons are of each setting. So I know that I have a certain standard of living, and so I have to think of, okay, what do I need to cut out of my budget to make it work to pay for rent in a place that's higher cost than Illinois? So listening to your gut is so important, because a lot of people are probably going to give you their 2 cents on what they think, and it's not always going to be something that's helpful for you. So I just want you all to keep that in mind if you're planning to do something big like this, where a lot of people will throw out their judgments at you and kind of criticize. Think if that's their truth or your truth. Are they kind of projecting on you their thoughts of what it looks like to move, or their thoughts of what is possible in their life? Or is it really something that you should be thinking of and reflecting on, and they're just trying to express care and concern? There's a big difference, and sometimes it's hard to distinguish between the two, but just sit back and ask yourself that and take every word with a grain of salt. The other thing that you're gonna wanna do is plan, and this can be a big spectrum depending on what type of person you are, but I would say that planning financially is the most important thing. One of the most important things is planning for what you can and letting go of what is out of your scope of control. I know this can be really hard, especially for someone like me. I'm a really kind of control freak when it comes to change. I hate change, and I know that's like something that is good for everybody, but I am not a huge fan of change. I like consistency. I like the normalcy of day to day, and I like knowing what's next. I don't like to just be super spontaneous, as horrible as that sounds. So I'm a huge planner, but to a certain extent, you have to know when to say when and when to kind of let go and say, the rest of this is going to happen the way it's gonna happen. It's so tough to do that, and it was so tough for me to do that. But I planned financially. I planned what I needed to buy before I went to Colorado, what I needed to buy maybe a couple months after Colorado, made a list of what I needed to set up for our apartment complex before we got there, because we were gonna do a 2-day road trip to Colorado. I planned all that stuff, but then after that, I said, you know what? That's all I can plan for. Like, this is, I might have had a couple other things to plan for, but all in all though, I said, okay, this is what I have control over, and this is what I don't have any control over. And I'm gonna let go of what I don't have any control over and just let the rest happen and play out. So one thing I didn't have control over was my animals. I am a very sensitive person, and I really don't like seeing my animals go through any sort of suffering. So seeing them and hearing them in a cage, because my animals came with me in the car since my significant other had the U-Haul, I was freaked out about how they would respond. I thought that I couldn't handle the driving and having animals in the back seat feeling sad and upset and crying, and I thought I just could not handle it. But guess what? It worked out. It was definitely not fun, I will tell you that much. Driving for how many hours? I think it took about a total of, am I wrong? I think it takes about a total of 14 to 15 hours to get to Colorado from where we were. It was over a 2-day span, but I will tell you that was a not fun experience, but I survived it, and nothing like went horribly wrong. It was just like, you know, a few things here and there, and dealing with some, you know, whining and crying from the babies, and making sure that they were okay, and just making sure they were as comfortable as possible. But other than that, you know, it was just out of my hands. So all I'm trying to say is that I do think you should try to control what you can control, because that's just gonna make you feel better. It made me feel better going into the move, but then let go of the rest, because not much else you can do. So if you want to know anything else about like the details of my move, or you know, how I planned, how much I planned for, or how I saved up, etc., etc. If you have any specific questions, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. I wanted to give you guys kind of an inside scoop of what happened over the past couple months and why I hadn't been posting for a while, because you know, I want to keep that open communication with you. I still love creating. I love bringing videos weekly, if not maybe working up to a couple times a week. But I just want to make sure that I'm taking care of me, and so that's why I took a little bit of time off. If you are in the process of some transitional stage and you don't know if you want to stay in your hometown or leave, or move to a different country, move to a different state, I know to a certain extent how you feel, and I just want to express that you will figure it out. And if you really want to make that happen, you will find a way. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below. And what experiences have you had like this? Have you ever moved? Have you ever had a big change in your life or a fork in the road and you didn't know what to do and you figured it out, or you're still figuring it out? Let us all know, and let the community and myself, you know, help you through that moment. You don't have to go through it alone, and I just want you to know that I'm here for you. The dark blue community is here for you. I will talk to you guys all really soon, and I will see you in the next video.